Good afternoon. Welcome, one and all, to MedTech's Propelling New York Forward, a series of conversations of interest and importance to New York's biomed industry. I'm Win Thurlow, the Executive Director of MedTech, and we're thrilled to have Ben Zombek, Principal of BZDesign, with us today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. We hope you'll enjoy this conversation, and we encourage you to wander over to our website, medtech.org. This is the 15th in our conversations, and you are able to catch any of the past episodes, and I would encourage you to do that. And for those of you who have been with us before, welcome back. You know the drill. First, before we go any farther, I do want to say thank you to our sponsors. We at the MedTech Association really rely on sponsors to help us bring programming to our members, and we couldn't do it without them. So a particular shout out to the sponsors of this series: Barclay Damon, MPR Associates, Fuse Hub, Gilroy Kernan and Gilroy, Regeneron, and Fisher Scientific. Thank you, one and all, for the generosity of your support. For those of you who might be interested in sponsoring a MedTech event or exploring opportunities to act as a sponsor, I encourage you to give us a shout. We're always happy to talk to you about those opportunities. Again, as I said, this is the 15th in our conversations. We started these early on in the spring, in the midst of the COVID shutdown, or at least initial COVID shutdown, and have had just a terrific series of conversations since then. We're going to take a short break after this conversation, and we're going to resume in September. We'll pretend that we're in France for a while and take the rest of August off and come back. We will not be resting, however, here at MedTech. I want to again encourage you to find your way to our website for the listing of upcoming programs and events. I particularly want to encourage you to mark your calendars now for October 21st and 22nd, where we will be hosting MedTech 2020, our annual conference. This year, like so many other things, we're going fully virtual. The good news is it allows us to expand some of our programming. We hope to announce an agenda in the next week or so, chock-a-block with opportunities to network and do business development, earn perhaps some continuing education credits, bring yourselves up to speed on what's going on in the industry, and learn about new innovation. So watch this space, come back and join us. We look forward to a busy fall. With that said, let me turn to today's conversation. As I indicated, Ben Zombek from BZDesign is our guest, and we're going to be talking about integrating the user experience, product development, exploration as you develop your products. Ben and his team at BZDesign, who are located in Rochester, run a really fantastic operation. They are a member of MedTech, and we've been thrilled to watch BZ as it's been growing and developing its product out in the western part of the state. We wanted to expand their audience a little bit across the state. And Ben and I are going to have a conversation. For those of you who have been with us before, you know how this works. Ben and I will talk for the first half hour. We want to encourage you to send us your questions and comments. You can use either the chat or the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll reserve the last 15 minutes or so of this 45-minute session to taking some of your questions. So don't be bashful. With that, let me say hello to Ben, and Ben, ask you if you could tell us a little bit about you and BZDesign, and I think you've got some slides to show us, and we'll go from there. How's that?
Sure, that sounds great. So Win, thanks so much for the introduction. MedTech, thanks for having us as a guest. We're excited to talk to you guys today a little bit about experience and how it fits in with our design process. So I'll show you a few slides to get going and introduction of who we are and where we're coming from, what we do, and how we tackle it. You can kind of see behind me here that I'm in our design studio. So there's some of the examples of projects behind us too. And if anybody has any questions, please reach out through the chat and we'll make sure to get back to you and connect with you. But thanks again, Win. I'll start with a couple of slides here. So I'm just going to share my screen. And if you could confirm, Win, that you could see this, that would be great.
We are looking at your screen, Ben.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay, so BZDesign is a multi-disciplined design firm here in Rochester, New York, as Win was saying. It started about 7 years ago. I had worked in the design industry my entire career. I'm an industrial designer, so I'm a product designer. I worked for a few different consultancies and then went back, got my MBA, and launched BZDesign. The whole concept with our design firm is that we're going to have a couple different design personalities working on your project. So we're going to have digital designers, we're going to have tangible designers. We'll look at the user interface as well as the device that you might be trying to take to market. And we'll kind of cross-pollinate and build the right product for your market. And then step into the marketing role sometimes with different customers to help them launch their company. So this is a Venn diagram kind of showing a little bit about how we do that. So the product design in the blue circles is me and Adam Baker. The graphic design is led by Kelly Vars, and marketing, Sam Randall. So I think some of my team members are on the chat, but we can circle back if anybody has any questions on what. Typically, we're a design consultancy, so we'll work with a lot of different industries, but health, wellness, and recreation is the kind of the spectrum that we're trying to play in and grow in. So being a member of MedTech is perfect to get introduced to some great folks like yourselves. We're a little bit decentralized, so we were ready for the COVID because we were using a lot of webcams and different tools to bring our teams together. But there is a core team here in Rochester, and that would be Adam on the design side of things, Laura Whitby on the user interface side of things, Kelly on the graphic design and UI, and then Sam on marketing. And just a little bit of kind of a teaser into the conversation to kind of show you how we use user experience to help feed the design funnel. This is a typical user experience workshop run by my team. And what we're doing here is we're engaging with the customer, with all the key stakeholders in the company to get everybody on the same page, tackling the same problem, trying to take the same product to market here. So in a session like this, we'll talk through what's the good, the bad, the ugly, right? Like what's good about our technology? How can we apply this technology to a problem? What do we know about our customers? What don't we know about our customers? How might they be using something? How might they not be using something? What are some alternatives? So we'll get together. Usually these things are 3 or 4 hours, and really do a deep dive and get everybody's perspective on the project and make sure we're headed off into the right direction. These things are great. These user experience workshops are fantastic because we can get everybody on that same page, get moving in the right direction, and have a running start as we start our process. Sketching and prototype. So again, we at the core are industrial designers, so we always want to drive with the product. So we do a lot of prototyping, a lot of thrifting, a lot of fabricating. We're huge fans of building things very early and down and dirty, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Build a lot of different options and get them in front of customers as soon as possible. And as far as getting out and doing customer discovery, that's a huge part of our process, which helps feed back into the design cycle. So it's an iterative process, and you're not going to hit it out of the park with your first sketch. Typically, it's you're going to have several different iterations on the product. So you need to build a group that you can reach out to again and again and again throughout the process and learn from that group and test your assumptions and make sure these things are right. So this is a bit of customer discovery where we've identified who we think our customer is, what target market we're looking for, we have a questionnaire, and we're going out talking to some folks in that demographic to kind of understand, exactly what do they like about the product, what do they dislike about the product, way before we launch the product. And then I just have a real quick case study kind of showing end to end our design process. So this is for Healthcare Originals. It's an asthma detection device. And with this, we started with the company before they had a brand, before they had launched any product, when they had basically just an idea and some technology, and we're exploring, like, how do we take this thing to market? We partnered up with them. We helped them develop their branding. We helped them develop their first products. So this is kind of showing some of the industrial design side of things with some of the model making. We helped them with user testing. So in this case, it's an asthma detection device. It's a wearable that a child would wear somewhere on their torso, and it will kind of record the symptoms of the child as they go through their day and alert the parent or the caregiver if they're streaming towards some sort of an attack or some sort of event that we can kind of stave off. So here we're bringing, in this case, they're my children, we brought them into the studio, and we're testing different sizes, different shapes, different forms. Like, how are they going to interact with this thing? How is a child going to feel about this emotionally? How are they going to wear these things? And all throughout the process, we involve different children that might be using that in the right target market. We also reached out to the parent and the caregiver on the app side of things for feedback, and just brought all of that data into the design process. So we basically have a data-driven design process rather than falling in love with a concept that our designers might come up with and trying to push that into the market. Now we're going out and letting the market really drive what that concept needs to be and what that product needs to be. So fantastic, case study. We launched them, we helped them launch at CES. They won a CES Innovation Award a few years back. It propelled tremendous success for them. They recently had an 80,000 unit sale to a South African hospital group, and they're well on their way to becoming real, to becoming a big time player. They have, I think there's 4 or 5 products in their product line now. They have a full team here. They're also MedTech members. So yeah, so that's a little bit of term win. And if we can talk a little bit more about user experience now, I can give you some more examples of it's kind of part of our core process here at BZDesign. Win, I can't hear you. Win, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I thought I had unmuted myself. So Ben, thank you for that. I'm wondering if we could start off a little bit by talking about timelines. Typically, when does somebody come to you? How does somebody know they should be coming to you? Do they come to you in enough time? Should they come earlier? Help me understand. I've got a product that I want to launch. When is it that I come and talk to somebody about the user experience and design components?
You should come today, right? Like, I mean, the earlier the better. So typically when there's a scientific group developing a technology and they're kind of back in the lab, they want to perfect that and get that technology absolutely perfect, which is fantastic, and they should be doing that. Our work is generally in parallel to that technology development, where we can be going out and talking to customers about how do they want to interact with that technology. You think about like Healthcare Originals. Some of the things that we learned by talking to real users early was that the device that we were thinking about taking to market was going to be about the size of an iPhone, which is, reasonable maybe. But when you put that on a child, now that becomes, twice that size, and it's too cumbersome. So by going through some customer discovery, by prototyping, by getting out there and talking to customers, we were able to talk to the engineering group, do a multi-layered board, bring the size of the components down, look at real battery life. How long do people really need to use a product? Where are they going to use a product? When are they going to use a product? All of those questions can be in parallel to developing the real technology before you commercialize. On the flip side of the coin, we've seen commercialize and not involve design. And then they come to us in wanting a Band-Aid, right? And they want to fix something that it's almost too late and you kind of still need to start ground up. So the sooner the better. And I will say we do not have mechanical engineers on staff. So we try to partner with companies that have the engineering discipline inside, or we'll bring another partner in for some of the engineering side of things to make sure that is being done appropriately. But yeah, we like to get involved really early. I have a few like paper models here. These are just foam core, right? So they're very like simple. It's a sketch on a napkin, right? And we do tens of these things when we build a product, and we take them out and we get feedback, right? Like how does somebody want to hold an instrument, right? Do they want to hold it like this, or do they want to hold it like this? Is it something that needs to fit in their pocket or in their work bag, or we can have conversations almost within a couple of days, and especially with 3D printers now, we can come up with concepts, build them in CAD, and have more concepts built out in a few weeks, right? And then we can go out and talk to customers about what these things really are. And every time we go out there with prototypes, we learn something. So it's tremendously valuable. So the earlier the better.
And so help me understand. I'm, as I say, I'm an entrepreneur who's got a product that I've envisioned. I'm barely beyond the ideation phase, and I got no money. Help give me a pitch as to why I should spend some little of the money that I've got, or some not so little of the money I've got, in integrating the user experience process into my product development.
Yeah, so typically when a startup approaches us, so we're part of NextCore, the NextCore community out here in Rochester. There's 100 startups in the building, right? And they're all developing something, and we can help a lot of them. When they do come in and engage with us, if they haven't launched a product before, if they don't have an engineering group to really something off, if they don't understand that launching a product costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, then we'll typically introduce them to the NextCore team to try to get them into a program like Hardware Scale Up, or introduce them to your team at MedTech, or an incubator, to try to let them learn about the process a bit. We do have small bundles of hours of it's basically a bundle of services where we can give them enough to get to that point where they can be investable. If they're not willing to go with that size chunk, then it's probably not going to be worth an engagement. If we're only working with a company for 10 hours, it's not going to be enough to really move the needle. So we try to explain that through that process. But yeah, I think that's the key, is get that passionate product champion, and introduce them to a team of folks that's done it before, and then kind of help them build out the plan. If they have a plan and they're ready to execute, then we're ready to execute with them, and we can hit the ground running.
And I'm curious to know, for your, the average person who comes to see you, is that somebody who has a fully formed idea and prototype ready to go and wants your input in the implementation of those ideas? Or is it somebody who typically comes to you and says, boy, I'm thinking of a wearable device to detect blood sugar, help me from the ground up? Where do you typically enter the process?
So a lot of times it'll be from the ground up. It'll be, especially in the startup, the small business realm, they may have a product on the market, these medium-sized businesses, and now they're looking at, we want to switch to a different market, right? So maybe they're in healthcare and they want to get into insurance or whatever this is, right? Or they want to pivot and get into banking with some sort of device, right? So we can help them think about, okay, can we take this core technology that you have and really communicate that well to experience for this customer now? When we're working with startups, they don't have their product yet, so it's definitely really raw, and it's more of, you know, they may have a little bit of IP, they may have a patent that they licensed, they may think, you know, they may know exactly what the industry that they're trying to launch into is, and or, you know, if they have multiple markets, they may understand what those look like, but they don't have the visualization to really explain what do we have here, and how special is it, how amazing is it, who cares about it, how much do they care about it, are they willing to pay for it, what, at what price point. All those things we can kind of tease out through the design process and learn from them, and help them really shape that product.
And how do you validate, for lack of a better word, your work? Is it, are there metrics that you offer customers, or, you know, boy, it's compelling to look at a picture of Ben trying out devices with his kids, but how do I know that makes any sense for me?
Right. Yeah, so there's a couple different buckets there. So we do some internal, we call it dog fooding, right? Where we'll test with our own studio and our own staff, and grab people that are walking by in the hallway at NextCore here, right? And just kind of ask them what's up, and get their feedback. You know, we've done things like, I've sent Sam over to the food trucks, right? With a big board, like the one behind me, to be like, hey, what do you guys like, right? You know, pick 1 to 10, like which one is your favorite, and vote, you know, first, second, and third, to get some data back. And rather than just getting a, you know what, I love the idea, right? And just getting positive feedback from folks. We don't necessarily want just positive feedback there. And then once we kind of shape that a little bit, our next step is to try to get some very unbiased feedback. And we'll use there's a platform called Qual Now, and Matt Foley from NextCore here has developed this platform. We're using that almost on all of our programs right now. And with that, you can build a community that cares about your problem, and you can present them with a couple different concepts, and they can be anywhere in the globe, but typically somewhere in the US. You can pick by region, you can you know, pick how many people you're looking for, and you can get, you know, you can present some information, they can watch a video, they can take a look at you know, some visuals, you know, just renderings, things like that. And you can kind of ping them with a bunch of things. They give you a video feedback, and it's very unbiased. They, you know, they don't know you, they're connected to you, and they'll really tell you what are some alternatives, what are they doing today, how are they doing it today, how are they solving the problem today. And then you can present your idea. Okay, that's great, but I want to use it in the car, or I want to use it on the train, or, you know, they can start to give you the real world workflow of how they're going to use the device. And then you can kind of tease that out and understand, well, if you're going to use it on your commute home, that suggests that you're going to use the device for 30 minutes or an hour, right? Well, now I don't need a battery that could power up a device to work for 2 days. I need to build the right product for the right customer, for the right problem. And we can really kind of put all that together through some great tools like that. So we use that. We use a lot of prototyping. We use a tool called Envision, which does the digital side of products. And we can mock up things that it looks like a real app, but it's very simple, and it's got some hotspots over the top of it. And then we'll reach out and do some testing. Then there's the interviewing bucket as well, right? So the interviewing is typically we'll work with the customer. We'll find out who are their key like customers at the end of the day that they want to bring in and get feedback from. And we'll set up a camera. One of our designers asks questions. We'll have them try on prototypes to kind of see how they feel, we'll talk through, you know, how they're going to use it, where they're going to use it, and try to get some feedback there as well. So there's a couple different tools, couple different ways that we do it. But at the end of the day, we're getting the feedback to build that right user experience, which is it's really going to allow a company to win or lose, right? Like if you build the right user experience, you're going to get great reviews. They're going to refer their friends to the product. You're going to get attention from investors. You're going to succeed. If you build a poor user experience, you're going to get a bad review, and it's going to flop, and it's not going to be good. So we want to get out there and talk to those customers as soon as possible. And there's a lot of different ways we do that.
Let me put you on the spot if I can, and perhaps ask you to, you can choose not to answer this question if you choose, but I'm wondering if you can give me an example from kind of both sides of the experience. Is there a particular product, particularly in the health space, that whether it came through your shop or didn't, that you think is particularly well designed, and is there one that we might know that is really poorly designed? And help me kind of just understand what the parameters of all that is.
Yeah, I think when you think about good examples of user experience, right? You think of Google, right? You think of Starbucks. In our area, it's Wegmans, right? Just unbelievable user experience. That's a grocery store, but it's way more than a grocery store to a lot of people. And then obviously Apple, right? So with Apple, their products are perfect. They're maybe not perfect, but really well thought out and refined. And they're getting into the medical with a lot of wearables and technology there. So they pay for it though, right? Like they have designers on staff. It's a huge core part of their business is to build that user experience, whether you're in their store or if you're on an online platform interacting with one of their products. Everything is kind of thought through and it's seamless. And so that's some good. Now, on the bad side of things, we actually have a almost a diary here in the studio where we all kind of bring bad user experiences to the table because there's so many of them out there. But just a few. So with Healthcare Originals, we were working on the wearable side of things. So we benchmarked some wearables to kind of see what they were like. And one in particular, I won't mention the brand, but Kelly in our studio was wearing it around and kind of seeing what it was like. And it had haptic feedback. And when you were at a stress level, right, rather than like an Apple Watch encourages you to breathe and has a nice thing, this thing was like a buzzer, and it was like and she literally took the thing off and threw it across the studio. Like this is the worst thing ever, right? Like I know I'm stressed out, and now you're buzzing me. Like it's terrible. So
are you suggesting, Ben, that buzzing stressed people is not the best way to get the desired response?
It is not a good idea. It is not a good idea. And you can ask Kelly about that. I also, just one other like bad design. So when I was in design school, we weren't really doing this whole customer discovery thing, right? And we were more like, these egotistical designers like trying to kill it with just these beautiful designs that everybody should love because they're amazing, right? Well, I got to my final crit on one design and they said, hey, that looks like a toilet. And I'm like, what? And, it doesn't toilet. And I didn't even think that, I didn't even think of that. And, it was too late at that point, right? So you've seen a lot of products go out that have flopped, and that's the problem. They don't talk to customers. They don't learn from customers. They don't build that experience until they launch a product in the market, and it's going to fall flat. So, we really encourage all of our customers to build, to test, and to in the hopper, whatever you learn, and do it again, right? Like evolve your design, get it in front of some more customers, and find out every little increment there is going to make that user experience really, really, really powerful versus, trying to do it on a shoestring budget, launching it into the market and having a flop. We try to help them win through user experience.
I'm mindful as I'm listening to you talk and some of the examples, of course, that you gave, whether it's Wegmans or certainly Apple, in many ways, those brands, I suppose, are able to command a slightly higher or not so slightly higher per unit cost for their products because of the design interface that they've built into them. How do you begin to weigh, this is a product that I need to bring to market, and I'd love it to have all of the bells and whistles. I probably can't sell it at the price that it's going to require to have all of those bells and whistles. I'm not Steve Jobs, who can say, it absolutely must look like this or we don't go to market. it sounds exciting as I listen to you, but I'm sensing a lot of anxiety and back and forth in that process.
Yeah, there certainly is. And the business team really has to look at that business case, and it's got to make sense, right? You can't build a unit for $300 and sell it for $350. It's not going to make sense. So there are, as part of our intake process in that user experience workshop, we'll learn what is the base material cost that you're willing to spend here, and how can we work with that cost. If it's a $50 bill, that's fine, but that probably means that we're not going to do gold plating, right? And we're not going to have all niceties. We have had experiences where customers ask for the super high-end premium, give us all those bells and whistles, and then they can't implement on it, which is a shame. So we want to know that up front. Like, what do we have to work with here? What is the customer willing to pay? What are the key attributes of your product that are amazing, or technology, and how do we bridge that, and how do we put the right package together for those customers?
And that price point issue, whether it's to an individual consumer who may be buying it in a retail environment, or perhaps in a medical device space, a buying group of some other sort. Where do those considerations come into the design space? Is that something that's informed by your work and user experience, or is that really more of an iterative process that you're working with the inventor and the inventor's business team?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example project, right? So we like to work in the accessibility space and try to help customers that are coming up with technologies that are going to help humans, right? And we have one company in particular that it's called Turnabout, and it's a device to help elderly people or the less able people get in and out of a car. So it's a fantastic idea. Very passionate inventor that has come up with the idea. Somebody that probably hasn't built a company yet and doesn't quite have the bandwidth to do that, and doesn't quite understand the full process. So with that, we immediately introduced to the manufacturers that could pull this off, right? The Picos and the contract manufacturers, people that could actually execute on this. And we got some cost estimates, before we even touched pen to paper, right? And gave her an idea of, okay, this is what it's really going to take to pull this off, to launch a product into the market. And we try to do that and get those introductions happening whenever we can with whoever's going to execute on the design, even before we've done the design. Try to get the two sides talking so that people can understand like what's practical. So if it's an overmolded design process, you're talking about two sets of tools, you're talking about part there. A lot of times it's quantity driven, right? So if somebody's going to ship 500,000 units, that's way different than if they're going to build 100, right? So we need to understand like what's the appetite here for the product, and then we try to give comments all along the way and make sure that the company has all the information they need to make those decisions. And one last point with Turnabout, we also introduced them to partners that we knew that could potentially pick up their technology, pick up their product, put it into their product line, and get it immediately into distribution, right? So we also try to help companies make it with the people that we know and trust, and that's usually for us is a win for them and a win for the manufacturer. Everybody can succeed that way, and we're very involved with the whole ecosystem. And if you think about like universities, SUNY Geneseo, RIT, U of R, on different projects, Nazareth. We've done different projects with each of those colleges because there's bright young students. Typically, they're looking for experience, so they'll work for close to free, if not for free. They'll help you with some of that customer discovery, building things out, and so we try to involve them if we can to make that more powerful and try to help them launch those devices.
And so many of our members in the medtech world really are engaged in product development that requires FDA or other type of regulatory approval. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you integrate some of those regulatory requirements into the design iteration process and the user experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so companies like Transonic Systems in Ithaca, New York, we do a lot of those guys. Typically, the customer will take care of a lot of the regulatory documentation and that type of thing. We come in at a very early stage where we help them with that customer discovery and help them build that user experience. And they kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting with the regulatory side of things. We have built several prototypes for those different clinical studies and helping them build their first units. We'll work manufacturing to get as far down the road as possible before the clinical study starts so that they really have the best, first articles off the tool and they're ready to go. But yeah, we love working with medical device companies for sure. And we hope to grow in that realm as we move forward here.
Before we go any further, I want to just remind our audience that in the time that we've got left, we're happy to chew over any questions, observations that you've got. So send them to us, please, through either the Q&A or the chat function. If you run your cursor over the bottom of your screen, if you don't see those buttons, they will pop up there at the bottom. One viewer writes in, Ben, and says, does BZDesign have a design philosophy? And if so, what is it? And why should I care?
Nice. Thanks for the question. Yeah, so our design philosophy will be, keep it simple, right? Like your interaction with a product should be simple, it should be seamless, and it should be thoughtful. So that's kind of three different things that we really think about. And it should be useful to people. We put it this way. So I've worked on a lot of different projects over my career with the different consultancies. And I did that we as a design firm should really do more to help people. And that's where the health, wellness, and recreation spectrum come in. We're all pretty fit. We love getting out. We love being active. We want other people to be active. So in the recreation, spectrum, that's where we're at. Health and wellness, very close to our hearts. We want to make sure that people are well. And then the accessibility is the other thing that we're really we do a lot with the RIT Livability Lab and try to bring student ideas to market and help kind of bridge that valley of death, if you will, where the student may have a great idea, the market wants it, but there's just no execution. And we try to help them kind of shore that up. We try to find the right people, the right inventors or investors, the right entrepreneurs that could help them, the right leadership team that could potentially help them, and marry that up with the right manufacturers and the right groups on the other end of it. So those are, that's kind of the space that we like to play in for sure.
I have a more specific question. Someone asks, what tool, again, did you mention that you use to mock up an app?
So that is InVision, InVision. And it's very much, you take a bunch of screenshots or different JPEGs, right, that my team creates in Illustrator, and then you put hotspots over the top of it. And then you can load it up on your app or on your phone, and you can pull up different versions. So when you're going out to test with some users, you can pull up like 3 different apps, and they can give you live feedback, like, oh, or you can actually observe them. And if you see them doing this and there's no way for them to do that, you're like, oh, well, we should think of it to be a swipe feature. Or if they're scrolling and, have a frown on their face and they're looking for more information, we can say, well, we're not presenting that well enough, right? Like, what are they thinking about? Or, however they react to those prototypes at that early phase, whether they're, a digital product or a tangible product, it's just fantastic to see those observations and learn, here's how people are really going to use it, and here's what people really care for. So that would be the tool for that on the digital side.
And we have another viewer who asks about brand experience and asks if you have a favorite brand experience, and perhaps digging down a bit, is brand experience important to the medical device industry? So I guess before I'd ask you to answer that, I'm wondering if you could define for us brand experience and what that means to you.
Yeah, so to me and Kelly, our branding guru, answered a little bit better. But brand experience is every touch you have with a brand. So I'll stick with Apple because everybody knows Apple well. So like I was saying before, if you download an app from their app store, if you go to the online platform, if you go into their store, if you use their product, all of that is just so well orchestrated. If you're on a MacBook like I am now, it's all so well thought out. There's very simple handoffs and exchanges. There's very few issues with, things just completely, blowing up, right? Like everything is just, it's really, really a nice user experience. So that brand experience is really kind of pulling all those pieces together. And that's why Healthcare Originals, right? We developed their brand along with their products, and now we're a key partner with them as they grow their company. And we help them all along the way with the creative assets. So when you go to their website, it's developed by the same design team that designed the product. So inside and out, it's a very continuous and continuous design and a design language, and it really pays off at the end because customers, they know you care, and they can see that you care, and that it's not just a half-done idea that you're trying to put out in the market.
So I'm curious, and at the risk of making you focus a little bit too much on Apple, have we as a society become Apple demanders? In other words, how much of the design ethos or zeitgeist, say, of Apple now drives all product design and development?
Oh, I think it's huge, right? It's changed people's expectations, right? And how they should, have an experience with a product. And it's so often that each of the designs that we're putting together gets compared to Apple, and it's a little bit old school, right? It may even be cliche to say I want my product to work like an Apple product, but it's the standard, right? And to be able to deliver on those expectations and make something really well thought out. If you turn something on and it doesn't do what you expect it to do, if you scroll through a user interface and you end up in the wrong spot, if you're on a website and you're filling out a form and it kicks you out halfway through the process, those things are unacceptable with somebody who cares about design and user experience. And it pays at the end of the day. Like you mentioned that people pay a premium price for Apple products, and they're going to continue to do that because they know that it's going to be a great product.
And so, Ben, as we sit here remote from one another, and all of our audience is similarly remote in ways that I don't think we ever fully expected as recently as 4 or 5 months ago, help me know, what do you do in the user experience realm now that we can't get together in quite the same ways that we did? How do you validate what you're doing in a remote experience?
Sure. There's another tool we use, which is called Stormboard. Stormboard is like a live brainstorming board where you can create, the Post-it notes and the Sharpies that we would use in a regular, workshop. Now you can do that live, and everybody can interact, and everybody can write over the top of each other's Post-it notes and move them around and group them. And so that's been a great tool for us so that we can still have the very same conversations that we would have. And then we couple that with a Zoom call so that we can actually see facial expressions and kind of read and make sure everybody's engaged and that things are working there as well. There's a lot of tools for that. The Zoom, Microsoft Teams, GoToMeeting, right, are a few. But another thing that we're doing, because we do a lot of product design, is we'll actually, we'll take a prototype and put it in a box and ship it to the customer and have them, you know, open it up in front of us on a go-to meeting, or at least, you know, kind of record their responses and have them bring it back, ship it back. And then we can clean it, you know, and get it to the next customer and get some really great feedback. And that's been very successful. It adds another step in the process, because now we can't just, you know, invite people into the studio and we have to, you know, be a little bit more socially distant, but it's still very powerful. And, you know, we have branded BZDesign boxes that we send out with the prototype so that people can experience that, interact with it, you know, pick something up and kind of see what it's like to hold. If, does it roll? Does it, you know, how big is it? What is the overall form factor? How are you going to hold it? Things like that. What's the balance and weight of it? You can't do that completely virtual. You have to have some tangible interaction there. So that's why we're doing that. But it's, you know, we haven't really missed a beat. We're still delivering on the same type of timeframes that we always have. It's just, you know, a little bit more work to kind of make sure that everybody has the right information. So if you do have a big team, right, now you have to maybe make multiple prototypes so that you can get them out to multiple groups at the same time. But we can do that.
So Ben, this has been a terrific conversation, but before I let you go, I'm wondering if you can let our audience know how they can reach you and your team in this virtual world. Certainly folks in Rochester probably know how to reach you, but for others, give us your contact information if you could.
Sure. So my personal email is bz@bzdesign.com. Or if you go to BZDesign.com, there's actually you have the ability to book an appointment right up there online. So it's BZDesign.com. And yeah, we'd love to hear from some of you folks. And, you know, if you're here, you definitely care about user experience. So you're the customers that we would love to work with. And we just, you know, we're very thankful for each of you being on the line and giving us some time to talk through who we are and how we tackle design.
The other thing I would say to our audience, of course, if you've remembered nothing else that you've heard today, you can certainly always reach out to us at MedTech, and we're happy to connect you, pleased to connect you to Ben and his team. They really are a terrific team. One of the things that I miss the most about being off the road is that I don't get to swing by NextCore and stop in to see the guys at BZDesign. It really, I got to tell you, at some point we're going to be back out there, and I'm going to recommend that everybody stop in and take a quick look at the kind of cool set of tools that you folks have, and talk with your team. So Ben, on behalf of all of us at MedTech and to all of you at BZDesign, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. To our audience, thank you for being here. Again, you can always find these conversations available at any time. Just hop on over to medtech.org. And with that, we will let you go, and we will talk to you again soon. So thank you very much.
Thank you.